Welcome to the REAL Autism Podcast. Real as in relevant, effective, actionable living strategies and solutions for a better quality of life. Join your host, Alicia Gaucher Page, for some real conversations. Sponsored by J. Cole Autism Coaching.
What's up, people? What's up, my J. Cole family? Welcome to the Real Autism Podcast, where we share relevant, effective, actionable living strategies and solutions. This is episode 17, and are you wondering who your guest is? Voila, it's me. I am your guest for this episode. I am celebrating. I know it's an odd number, but I am celebrating episode 17. We have shot 16 episodes for this podcast. It's been great bringing information to my audience, to caregivers who are managing the stress as well as the journey of navigating autism now that they've received a diagnosis. And I'm hoping that this podcast will give you resources and allow you to have a better quality of life. So thanks for joining me. If you have comments, you like what I said, you didn't like what I said, just put it in the comments so that I can hear from you. I also want to thank all of my subscribers, all of those that have listened, who have liked, shared, and subscribed to this podcast. So I want to express my appreciation to you for helping spread the word to my guest. I also want to express my appreciation to my guests that have been on the podcast, that have given their time freely to come and share information. You know, people who work in this profession, they are a special person. You have to be special to work in the neurodivergent population. So I want to thank my guests that, guess what? You are going to hear some of my favorite clips from some of the episodes. And you can always go to YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and listen to any podcast that you missed. So hopefully, once we go through some of my favorite clips, it'll pique your interest and you will go and listen for yourself or share it with someone that may benefit from this information. So without any further ado, let's jump right into it. I am going to run my first clip from episode 1 with Miss Shayla Collins from Diane Loves Living. Let's check it out.
Just have to pay attention to the individual person, because guess what? They're no different than us, right? So if I have a friend and she's going through something, I want to pay attention to what's going on with her. And it's the same thing. They're individuals. They do need some guidance, but they feel, they have emotions. They, want to be social. They feel just like we do. So it's no different. And so you just have to pay attention, because I work with nonverbal individuals a lot of times, and they can't communicate to me what their needs and wants are. So I have to be observant. Also, routine is key. Routine and consistency, because the more that they know their routine and the more that it's consistency throughout the team, as you discussed earlier, they may have a team. They may have 2 or 3 different caregivers plus their parents, or if they're going to a facility or whatever like that. So you have to just pay attention and just know that routine is key and consistency is important.
That's great. So again, that was my first guest for my inaugural episode with Miss Shayla Collins. And she has an organization called Diane Loves Living that provides caregiver services and helps them to achieve their skills and their skill set. So why I chose that episode is, my question was, what do you look for, or how do you treat somebody that's in the neurodivergent community? And from that clip, what I got was, you just have to be observant, understand what it is that they like, what they dislike, treat them like any other person, as well as number two, get them into a routine. Routine is key. Routine is key, as well as consistency. When you get that routine and you get consistency in place, you will see nothing but progression. So thank you to my guest, Miss Shayla Collins. So let's check out the second episode. Hold on. Let me double check. My second episode, yes, Miss Rachel Barron with Effective Students, where she talks about effective functioning skills, where she targets individuals with ADHD as well as autism. So let's hear from Rachel.
People with ADHD get more negative input than they get positive input by an exponential amount. I would say for every 10 comments, 8 are corrections or redirections versus 2 positives, right?
Right.
So there's a conversation in the ADHD community about rejection dysphoria. And I'm sure it applies to kids with ASD just as well and adults. So I did a training on ADHD and its prevalence, and I had a bunch of educators brainstorm. When I say the word ADHD, what comes to mind?
Mhm.
And they threw out a bunch of adjectives and descriptors and everything. Yeah, 80% of them were not positive. And then later on in the presentation, I talked about rejection dysphoria and how many negative messages that they get. And then all of a sudden, the room was really quiet. And I said, okay, now that we all feel terrible about our preconceived notions,
Yeah.
let's talk about what are the awesome things that people with ADHD can do. And so,
So thank you to Miss Rachel Barron with Effective Students. She has her own company. You should check it out. She provides executive functioning skills that are effective at helping individuals with ADHD as well as autism with time management, organization, just being able to manage their lives. Not only is that good for the person that's in the neurodiverse community, it's also good for caregivers because in order to manage this autism journey, it's very important to be organized and manage your time and maximize it to the best of your ability. So what I enjoyed most about that clip, she used a big word, rejection dysphoria. And at the end of the day, we find ourselves with the ADHD population and or autism always providing correction in terms of their behavior. And a lot of times that's perceived as negative input because we're saying, stop doing this, don't do this, move over here, do this. It's like a drill sergeant. And none of us want to be in that position or feel that way. And so, in one of her examples she gave when she was working with educators, 80% of the time, well, she asked them to describe ADHD. And essentially, most of the commentary that they gave was perceived as negative, which is the term she used, rejection dysphoria. So, what can we do to reverse that? It's important to try to reverse that ratio of 80% negative, 20% positive to 80% positive, 20% negative, and just try to promote positive reinforcement as well as instead of negative reinforcement. And to be sure we just don't have an unconscious, is what we call it, an unconscious bias about how we treat someone who's in the neurodivergent community. We want to treat them with the same dignity and respect as we treat everybody else. So the lesson learned there is let's tap into the potential. Let's not spend a lot of time on their struggles. Let's tap into their strengths and what they do well. So thank you, Miss Rachel Barron, for your knowledge during episode 2. So when we move into episode 3, we have Dr. Danette Taylor. She is an autism, well, really not autism. She has an autism son named Quincy. However, she is an educator, or at least a former educator, who now became a family advocate. So let's hear from Dr. Taylor in episode 3. What are the legal rights for children with disabilities in the education system that every parent should be aware of?
So there are quite a few of them, right? And obviously I can't go over all of them, but I'll tell you some hot ones. And I'm going to start with the hottest of them all. Every parent needs to know their dispute resolution options. So when there is a disagreement with you in the school, know that there are processes and systems in place for you to dispute what the school is doing. Okay? There's a state complaint. There is an Office of Civil Rights complaint. I know they're doing what they're doing with the administration right now with that, but that's another story. There's mediation as well. Okay, so those are the top 3 that you can do, especially in Georgia, without a lawyer. If you're going to file a due process complaint, you can file it on your own. But if you have to go to a hearing, I don't really suggest a parent go to a hearing on their own, but you can. So the number one thing to know is that if you do not agree, you don't have to roll over, because so many parents are just like, well, they told me no, and they walk away and they just accept it. Okay. And I'll give you a quick story.
So that is my friend and colleague, Dr. Danette Taylor. Again, she is a family advocate that supports many families in partnering, collaborating, advocating for their neurodivergent loved one. And what I like most about that clip is it is imperative that parents, guardians know what their legal rights are. Many times when you're in the IEP meeting, they give you this sheet of paper and say, hey, do we need to review legal rights? It's in all of this tiny writing. And so we just gloss over it and say, we're familiar, and we don't read it. I mean, I've done it, but it's important to read through those documents. It's important to know that there is a due process that you should have as a parent of someone who is going to school in the school system. Familiarize yourself with that and hold the district and the school accountable to following that process. If you want to learn more, that was a great podcast. She dropped a lot of nuggets because she's sharing it from the perspective as a caregiver as well as an educator. So she's seen it from both sides. So thank you, Dr. Taylor, for joining me on the podcast. So as we move, episode 4 with Miss Megan Timko. She is the founder and CEO of Parallel International, where they focus on transitional planning. So when you hit that age of 18, what happens next? She talks a lot about that. So let's hear from Megan.
Take your pick. I know you have several,
yeah.
right?
Okay, let me get out my notebook. So I'm going to talk about it on both sides. For the caregivers themselves, there is codependence, and it's necessary. You have to be the champion for your child when they are in school. It is how our system was set up across our country, across our educational institutions. I'm not saying don't do it. What I am saying is be cognizant of what that's doing. So as somebody approaches adulthood, it's real hard from a caregiver's perspective, and this is experience now over the last 5 years, to all of a sudden say, okay, now you're independent. I mean, that's hard. You've been driving somebody to school every day sometimes. You've been packing their lunch. You've been checking in with the para. You've been checking in with the teacher. You're going to 504 meetings or IEP meetings once, twice, 3 times a year. You are the quarterback. And then all of a sudden, transition is like, don't be the quarterback. Let this person be independent. They need to make all their decisions. They need to make their own sandwich. And you're like, wait, what?
So that was Miss Megan Timko. what I love most about my podcast and the reason why it's called the Real Autism Podcast is because all my guests are real. They're not giving you this false narrative. It's not prim and proper. They're telling you the real deal. And as a parent of children on the autism spectrum, I think it's important to talk about that. So in that clip, she talks about codependency. So what does that mean? That means your loved one is dependent upon you to do all these things. And because we care for them so much, we step in and do a lot of things because we're in a hurry to get things done, because it does take extra time to teach your loved one how to do things. And, for me, when I get home, I'm trying to get ready for bed. I'm trying to hurry up and cook dinner. So many times I would just say, come on, Coleman, let's say the grace, and say it for him, as opposed to encouraging him to get his communication advice and say it himself. So it's important to start early. What Megan is saying in that clip is, yep, you've been the quarterback and all this time you were going to lead, but it's important to give your loved ones the playbook. Show them what it is that they need to do and put them in the game and let them do it themselves, make the mistakes, because from that, you grow from your mistakes. So thank you, Megan, for joining the Real Autism Podcast. So now we are going to move into episode 5. Episode 5 was with Miss Trinae Hall, who is the behavior specialist that supports Jasmine. She supports many clients within Atlanta and the surrounding areas. So she was a fun guest. She kept me laughing throughout the interview. So let's hear it from Ms. Hall. They're being asked to execute this plan, and they just feel just helpless.
Yeah, it's just a matter of being patient. You have to be patient. The individual did not develop that behavior overnight. It took some time. And the thing is that it's going to take time. It's going to take consistency. It's going to take routine, or whatever like that. And like I stated before, with the individual, that was a severe case, right? And then I had to train that night at 1 o'clock in the morning. But at the end of the day, it came down to routine, and the family was overwhelmed. They were overstimulated because the behaviors was so bad. But I would tell you, to be patient, be patient and have a consistent routine. And then guess what? You have to have time for yourself, for self-care. And a lot of times, I don't want to leave my baby. I don't want to, no, leave your baby. Especially if it's someone that you really trust.
You heard her. She said, leave your baby. And when she says that you're only leaving them for a short time, it's important to put the oxygen mask on yourself before you can put it on somebody else. So in that clip, she's talking about one of her clients that has severe behaviors, and how individuals don't ask to have this condition. Autism looks different for a lot of people. I find, like, on social media, I see a lot of different caregivers that have their own social media page and they talk about their experiences. Some of them look a little bit easier to manage. And then you have others where they're putting holes in walls, they're banging their head against the wall, they're trying to fight you. Either way it goes, many of these individuals, they didn't ask to be put in this position. So as Ms. Hall said, it's critical to have patience and to be in the mode of teaching them and helping them with behavior modification. So thank you, Ms. Hall, for being on the podcast. So in my last clip that I want to share with you. Now, granted, we did 16 episodes, but for tonight, we're just going to go through 6, and maybe next week we'll do some of my favorite clips from the others. How does that sound? Good, I hope. So let's move on to Dr. Rebecca Eswine, who is a special needs educator. Let's see what she's talking about. Kind of try to establish, I guess, successful relationships with parents.
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest thing about being a special educator is I picked this, right? Like I picked this career path. I said, this is what I want to do. And I chose it and I put my whole heart into it, right? As a parent, you don't get to pick. You don't get to decide whether your child is born with a disability or not. You know, like they are born and you're grooving along. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait a second. That's not maybe what I expected. Right. And so I think that like coming from that perspective, like that's always been my first, like step number one, right? Like I have to have empathy and understanding for the fact that like you as a parent do things that I will never understand. I will never walk in your shoes in the same way when I'm in the classroom doing that. And so I always have to start with that. Parents are doing the absolute best that they possibly can at every single moment. And some, as a parent myself now, like some moments are really pretty and awesome, and some maybe I could have done better, right? And so I think.
Awesome. Oh, that sun. Can y'all see me? Because I can't see myself. There we go. So in that clip with Dr. Eswine, shout out to Dr. Eswine because she was Coleman's teacher for the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade until he moved to middle school. How do you develop a successful relationship with a parent? And I think she gives perspective when she becomes a parent herself and she knows what it's like. And she knows it's hard. It's hard for any parent, even when you're dealing with a neurotypical child. So imagine if you have some additional things going on with your child, it makes it a little bit harder. So what I got from that clip is she learned as an educator to just be more understanding about what that parent is doing, less critical, and to know that they are doing the best that they can with the cards that they have been dealt. So a lot of what we heard in these clips is 1, patience, 2, consistency, 3, routine, 4, being observant, 5, this is not the words they use, but in terms of being less codependent, giving them an opportunity to thrive, all of those things. So not only is this good for caregivers to know, but if you are the family and or friends of families that have to deal with navigating the journey of autism, remembering those 5 things is really all you have to do. You really don't have to go out here and get this special training to provide support for families. Just be patient, be supportive, and you can go from there. So as we wrap up the clips from the first 6 episodes, again, I want to thank all of my guests. And you will hear from about the other episodes. I'm not going to leave them out. But in the meantime, you can always go to YouTube, the Real Autism Podcast, and you can see all of the episodes, as well as you can go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And remember, I want you to like, share, and subscribe. You know what? I'm going to turn this way because I want to be able to see y'all, and I want you to be able to see me. So as we wrap up again, there are 2 things that J. Cole is doing that I want to invite everybody out to, and it's for neurotypical, neurodiverse. It is Jasmine's Autism Walk, held on the 2nd Saturday at, where is it held? Oh, Silver Comet Linear Park Trail in Powder Springs. I invite you to come out on the 2nd Saturday. We've had a great time. I think we started in June. We're doing it this coming Saturday. And if you can't come, but you're walking, I have friends all over, and the way they support, they join us virtually and they just walk at the same time. So if you're in the Central Time Zone, that would be 8 a.m. for you. I plan on going live on IG, and you can join me on camera live. We can support Jasmine's autism walk from anywhere. And then secondly, on the fourth Saturday, we have J. Cole's Kickball Crew, where we bring everybody out, neurotypical, neurodivergent, to work on kickball techniques. All of these events work on socialization and making friends. So I invite anybody that is neurodivergent, you don't have to have autism, or even neurotypical to come out. We do have volunteer opportunities. All you have to do is go to jcoleadvocacy.com to RSVP, or provide me with your information so I can add you to the distribution list. Lastly, I have a special guest coming in the next couple of episodes. It's going to be my friend, Mr. Zuri Williams, and he is going to be my guest co-host on the Real Autism Podcast. He's also the father of 2 individuals that are on the spectrum, and I think it's important. The reason I chose him, just to be straight up with you, to be real with you, is because he is a male. He is a man. And so he's going to share his perspective in terms of being a father. I'm going to share mine. We might even disagree. But at the end of the day, we are going to be sharing some real information that is going to be relevant, effective, actionable, living strategies and solutions. So stay tuned. Be sure to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. Just follow me. You got it? Not sure if we have any questions out there, but I hope that you enjoyed this time together. And we will see you next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Peace.
Thank you for tuning in to the Real Autism Podcast with Alicia Gaucher Page. We'd like to take a moment to thank the sponsors of this episode: J. Cole Autism Coaching, helping caregivers navigate to a better quality of life; AGP Organizational Coaching, helping people develop effective strategies, systems, and solutions to organize information. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to us wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube, or just visit us at jcoleadvocacy.com.